All right. Well, let's try this again. Hopefully the sound is better. I know it kind of just popped out and like got all messed up. Hopefully it's better this time. Let me check on my phone here too. What is up, Matt? Can you hear me better now? Is it sounding any better? Misty, hello, hello. Joe, Angela, good to see you. All right, so we're all fixed. Let's start over then, okay? I think I know what happened. It was user error as always. So I was just checking to see if you guys are actually paying attention. That's all. What is up, Joe? So yes, we are back with another edition of Logician Tim Learns. This is where you get to watch me go from a total gaming newbie to a really bad streaming newbie. So yeah, that's it. So glad everything is working now. And we're going back over this Degenesis RPG tonight. We're looking at the 13 cults. And guys, this has taken up a lot of brain power to kind of translate this stuff from their words into kind of words that I can describe it to other people. It's not just spoon-fed to you, so it's a lot. You didn't need to use your schmexy voice. Yeah, apparently I did. I know one job, Jay, right? I had one job. Oh, well. I thought the demon voice was great. You would. What's up, Michelle? Good to see you. All right. Well, let's look and see what we got going on tonight. We have, we're going to be looking at the 13 cults in Degenesis, and I'm going to be kind of sharing back and forth from the book and to the PDF as well, because the artwork is so incredible. Let's pull this up real quick. Where am I? Here's the cults. All right, and let me show you what this looks like kind of up close. I mean, the artwork is just amazing. And if you watch the trailer video, I think you saw one of these guys in there, and it's kind of neat. And maybe we'll do that at the end. We'll watch the trailer together, and you can kind of see some of these cults that are being portrayed in the trailer, and you can kind of understand, okay, I understand why this person is acting this way, and I can understand why this person is acting that way. It's because of these different cults that they're in, and they're different, cultures and traditions and things like that. And it all stems from their backgrounds and everything. It's really cool. Should definitely do that for the live stream when you DM. Yeah, I should do the devil voice. Yeah, I'll do that. What's up, Jacob? So yeah, let's dive right in. Let's talk about this a little bit. I love when I forget to do things. There we go. All right, maintenance, Tim. Focus. All right. So let's dive right in and talk about these 13 different cults. And I kind of started with like this real in-depth description and explanation, and then I soon realized that the stream would be like 16 hours long. And so on some of them that weren't as interesting, I just kind of cut them out. I left them in there, but like just a little bit of information about them, just because they weren't as interesting as the other ones. But these first ones I think are killer. These are the Spitalians. It's like Italians with a SP in front of it. Spitalians, all right? And these are the scientists, okay, and the doctors of the world for the most part. But they're also fearless warriors. But that wasn't always the case, because right after the Eschaton, which was like the asteroids raining down from the heavens and destroying most of the earth, the Spittal, as they were known, this group of people were the crisis center of the Southern Ruhr, is what they call it. The crisis center, okay? And they were the only place around that was taking in survivors that, would give them medical care. And so soon the word kind of gets out and people just flood in from everywhere, right? And like, oh crap, doctors here, they got medicine. Everybody just runs in and storms their gates and busts down everything. And, they start looting all their stores and all their medicines, injuring people and killing people, anything that got in their way. These sick and injured people were just destroying. And the doctors, the only way they could defend themselves was with like scalpels, right? And they ended up using the injections to and put I'll get it out. Put sulfuric acid into these injectors, and like we're using those as weapons as well. And it said that they used oxygen and gas bottles that were normally used for medicine purposes, medical care, and they turned them into flamethrowers. And that just sounds badass to me. So they stood together, backed up against the walls of this little crisis center, and they held off the people and held their ground to save themselves and what they had left of the crisis center until the UEO forces finally arrived as reinforcements. Now, just a few years later, multi-week stream. Yes, we'll be finishing this one up next week, I hope. Now, a few years later, after this big incident of sick and injured people storming their gates, the crisis center was renamed the Spital, and the UEO was actually dismembered. But a lot of the former soldiers in the UEO, they actually stayed around the Spital and vowed to protect these doctors pretty much at any cost, and they did so using pretty much any means. So they're pretty brutal. The Spitalians made the decision that if humanity was going to be saved, that they are the last bastion of hope. They are going to be the ones that save humanity, and if they fall, then humanity falls. So they wear these like matte black suits, a lot of times made out of neoprene. And they have these kind of longitudinal stripes on them. They carry this long pole with like some type of hinge on it. On one end is a blade. On the other end is like a screwed on glass cylinder with some type of murky fluid. They didn't really talk about what that was yet. In plague areas, they cover their body in lime and kind of like as a disinfectant. And they have like small holes in their suits that are kind of sealed, and they have this like small hole, like especially around their arms and stuff, so that they're allowed, they kind of has access for somebody else to inject them, to kind of to purge their system or whatever, without exposing their entire body to kind of the spore-ridden air, because it's all crazy out there. Remember, the spores are kind of taking over people. These spores infect people and make them change, right, in all these different ways. So you want to make sure that you're not leaving yourself susceptible to these spores that are out there, right? And these guys are like kind of like clean freaks too, right? They're the doctors and the scientists. So they say every day in the lab brings them closer to understanding and saving mankind. So every day in the lab, they're getting closer to saving mankind. Every day they decide between destruction and healing, okay? Because they fight kind of cholera and destroy spore-affected villages. So like they'll come into a village and totally destroy it if it's overridden by spores, because they don't want the spores to get out at any cost, right? Those just kind of level the village. In Franca, they detonate remember those ferromancers I was telling you about last time? They detonate their vents. In Pollen, they study the fractal forest. In Pergar, they burn swatches into the ticks and fleas army. And so they're doing all this type of destruction and stuff, but at the same time, they're studying what they're doing, and they're studying the spores and how it affects people and these different diseases and things, and trying to make headway into saving humanity. Now, they're kind of on the crazy side of things when it comes to hygiene, okay? And they say hygiene really determines a Spitalion's daily life. All right, these guys are kind of like clean freaks in a little way. So they say the purification ritual is so robust that strangers would say it was torture. They have to take enemas, which flush out the bacteria from their bowels. They have to drink like tons of water. The whole body is shaved and disinfected with this like harsh brew of chemicals, and it burns their skin and burns their eyes. And it's really exhausting for the Spitalian, but they actually, they kind of enjoy it in a way. They consider it a de-fearing, as they say it washes away a lot of their anxiety that's of being infected or impure. And the book says, and I like this quote, the danger of being considered a leperos, which is the Spitalian term for a spore-affected human, hangs like Damocles' sword above them all, no matter where they stand in the hierarchy. So if somebody says, hey, you find out that you have spores, it doesn't matter if you're like way up in the ranks or you're the low man on the totem pole, you're probably going to be burned to death, and they're going to take you out. They don't care. Sounds like a Saturday. Yeah, right. So yeah, just cool stuff about these Spitalians. I wanted to kind of show you some of the stuff that's in here. And the artwork. Look at this, you guys. Like this little thing right here. It was in that trailer video, and I was like, what the hell is this like staff with the little glass thing on top? Well, it was obviously a Spitalian, right? It's cool. And I think one of the guys was like, he had shaved his head and he was putting stuff all over his head and stuff. And that was obviously a Spitalian, going through that putting that lime on themselves, right? Look at that. It's badass. These guys are lined up. So here's the different types of ranks, and each one of these cults has kind of a hierarchy, right? And you start off here, and then you kind of go through all these steps. Some of them actually bounce around, but they have these different types of ranks, from recruit to orderly to, you can see famulancer, field medic, surgeon, and so on, Hippocrat, anesthesiologist, all this kind of stuff. And then finally you get to an elder. So yeah, tons of things going on with this, with all these types of cults. It's pretty awesome. Did someone say enema cocktails? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Yeah, that's right, Jay. Oh my God. Yeah, the art is incredible. The art is incredible. And for each of these cults, they have a page on the rank and the stereotypes. I thought this was kind of cool. This is how this cult views the other cults. And so you can see right here, like, where this is how they view the Anabaptists. And they say, though we share common goals, they're full of misconceptions, but we cannot afford to be too picky when it comes to our allies. And so you can kind of go through and quickly see, how does this cult feel about this other cult when you're making your game or you're playing in your game, stuff like that. And I thought that was really handy. And then they also have kind of key figures. And sometimes these are famous people that either are in this cult or are somehow, associated with it. And they'll give a few different characters that are famous that you might maybe run into if you're around that area or around those cults. And I thought that was just kind of a cool design to do. Now, let's move on to, these are the Chroniclers, and these guys are pretty cool. And if you remember, these are the guys that, let me flip to my page, my book. These are the guys that I told you buys, pretty much anything technology related from the scrappers. Remember that? That's these guys. And I kind of like to think of this as the cult of tech geeks, okay? They tell a little backstory here, and I thought it was interesting that before the Eschaton, before the apocalypse, they called themselves streamers. I'm a streamer. No, but like hardcore data geek streamers that lived in the cloud and never came out in the public. And these people were hardcore data miners, right? It's kind of a hard to follow exactly what's going on with them, but it sounds like these people, they basically lived in the data. They mined and compounded all that data, like all the data that they could get their hands on. Entire cultures and humanity's knowledge merged into this thing called the stream. Okay, it's almost like a digital, almost consciousness, right? Well, when the Eschaton happened, centuries of information was suddenly lost, just right there in an instant, right? But the streamers, a lot of the streamers lived. Well, years would pass by, and they would start to collect all this technology that they found, hoarding it, but they really didn't know what any of it was. So eventually, they would get more organized, and they built a central cluster, kind of like this node in a freight yard, which is considered their digital heart. Okay, so almost like a hub of the internet is kind of like the way I see it. And from this, they would start rebuilding the stream once again, but it was kind of short lived. And the otaku, yeah, kind of like that, I guess. So they've rebuilt this central cluster, almost like a mega computer, and started up the stream once again, or something like the stream, but it was kind of short lived. The Anabaptists actually stormed in and like, who the hell are these people, and overwhelmed these streamers. They destroyed all their technology and effectively erased all the streamers had rebuilt, right? The Anabaptists had shown the streamers their weaknesses, the Chroniclers, their weaknesses. And they understood now that the swords are sharper than their digital world. So from this point on, they had figured out, all right, I got to change my tactic, right? They start thinking, okay, well, we were kind of just nerdy, keyboard warriors for the most part, and that didn't scare anybody. So they decided they would keep their power through intimidation. And so from that point forward, no stranger has ever seen a chronicler's face. And shards of mirrored glass is added to their robes. You can kind of see it on this picture. A modulator amp that distorts their voices, kind of sounds like Darth Vader. You can hear them breathing in saliva and just all modulated sounding, kind of like I did earlier, I guess. They wear that constantly, and so they look and sound like irate gods, like just pissed off gods, right? They have these barcodes that are tattooed on their foreheads, so they kind of move their mask down and they get scanned whenever they come into and out of the cities. And so they learned that information was power in itself, and they made themselves basically indispensable by developing their own currency called the Chroniclers draft. Okay, and this currency was used to trade for information such as, I don't know, a safe passage through a certain area, or spy data, or compromising information on your enemies. You might use some of your chronicler drafts to give to me if I was a chronicler, and I might give you some information on your enemies, or scientific text on flora or fauna, all this type of thing. So, and it became very handy to have a chronicler on the city council suddenly, right? Because you can dig up dirt on all your enemies. You know exactly what's going on with everybody. And so because they controlled, the chroniclers suddenly controlled all the flow of information, who got access to it, and what information that person received. And so they made themselves like totally indispensable. Pretty cool. This is beyond awesome. In my head again. Yeah, it's badass. So they look for kind of the discarded recruits. Okay. So any child that doctors might deem autistic, especially, and all youth who have fallen through the cracks due to like their physical shortcomings, the chroniclers will scoop up and kind of start putting them through a test for, as potential recruits. So if they pass these tests, then they'll be issued a mentor who kind of acts like their parent for the most part. And they're going to work with them and be given a job, and they get promoted, and it's called an update. When you get an update, you're getting a promotion. And this happens as their skill increases, and all the data about their lives is poured into this central cluster where kind of algorithms dictate when they will be updated into what role. And it was kind of cool because they could tell very accurately a lot of times how long certain individuals would live and in what manner they might die. And it's kind of neat, this central cluster. There's a lot going on there. It's pretty awesome stuff. So yeah, that's the Chroniclers, man. And they're just super cool. So I'm gonna flip through here and show you some of these images. And you can see how the graphic design changes from chapter to chapter. Like this is kind of techie, but almost with like some blurriness going on here with the headers. And I kind of like that. Kind of like techie from yesteryear. Looks pretty cool. They have like the circuit boards in the backgrounds. Oops. There we go. I mean, this is one of the chroniclers right here. I mean, just kind of this scrawny, pale guy. Nobody's really ever seen his face. No stranger has. Here's his badass mask. Cool stuff going on. This reminded me of the Nexus Hoarder, right? You remember that little guy? This reminded me of the Nexus Hoarder, just that face, and I think the hood too. It's the hood in that face. It just kind of looked like the Nexus Hoarder to me. And this is one of the chroniclers, and they do look very intimidating to people. And that's by choice, right? They're trying to intimidate people so that they don't get attacked. And of course, they had their ranks as well that you can climb up, just like all of them do. Here's their hierarchy: bit, agent, mediator, shutter, streamer, fragment, needle, scholar. So all these different things, and they says they talk like in a real abbreviated type conversation, and so like every word is chosen very, very carefully. They say that a misspoken word is like a bad program almost. So it's kind of neat. And again, they have the stereotypes here for the different for all the different cults, how they see all the other cults. And look, this guy right here there he is again. Looks kind of cool. So yeah, just cool stuff. What is up, Eduardo? Good to see you, my man. So let's move on to the next one here. Who's up next? We have the Helvetics. These guys are pretty cool too. Love this rifle that they have. So here are the Helvetics. And so these are really the soldiers of the Alps, okay? So once they were a formal military before the Eschaton, right? And the Helvetics cult now, they still keep this same type of culture with kind of a bit of a the maybe 300, kind of have that mixed in a little bit into their culture here. When the Eschaton hit and the asteroids fell from the sky, you remember the Reaper's Blow, which is that huge fissure that went across this part of the world, it split the Alps in two. And the soldiers were kind of on one hand and the people were on the other. And they needed to cross this great fissure. And so for years, they built these bridges across this chasm with volcanic lava, flowing below it. And so it was crazy hot. And this heat would just rise up, and it reminded somebody of hell, basically. And so one of them jokingly referred to themselves as Helvetics. And basically the name stuck. Yeah, it's hell, Hell, Vetics. And the name kind of stuck from that point forward that they went by Helvetics. Now, children, this is where it kind of gets into the 300 a little bit. Children are recruited into the Helvetics at a really young age, and they're put through a lot of physical and psychological tests and trials. And at 14, these drills start. And if they prove themselves worthy, then they will get their Trailblazer, which is what they call their rifles there. They call them a Trailblazer. And so they'll get that at age 15. And this Trailblazer is really at the center of their thoughts and their actions until they die. Basically, your gun is you, right? And all gear, and they say, like, if their weapon, if their Trailblazer is stolen or if it's damaged beyond repair, then you're out. You're expelled from the army. All the gear is considered the property of the Helvetic army. And they say using it thoughtlessly or unnecessarily is considered theft, right? And I think that's just nuts. So they kind of take things to extreme. They say a missed shot is a misuse of your ammunition, and you're going to be punished going forward by receiving less ammunition and food rations as a result for a while until you can prove your worth again. And this kind of ideology is drilled into these people from a very early age. So it's pretty neat. What's up, Scott? Good to see you, my dude. Reminds me of The Witcher's Trial of Gases. Yeah, it definitely is. Let me flip through here a little bit more. So that was the Helvetics. I'm going to flip through and show you some of this art here. Oh, their doctrine was pretty cool too. So it says, I swear to carry my Trailblazer close to my heart, for it is the only thing that stands between me and savagery. All its rounds are crafted with effort, so I aim well and do not waste them. Only the hit counts. There's just cool stuff like this that they throw in there, these little doctrines and mottos and things like that just really breathe life into these different cults. Check this out. This is one of the Helvetics right here. Got our armor in the background, our helmet. This is badass stuff. And again, look at the graphic, how the graphic design changes from section to section. This top part up here is kind of military kind of looking. Just looks neat to me. Each section just has its own flavor. I really dig that. Here's some more artwork. Just looks incredible. So again, there's the ranks of the Helvetics. I like that they add this because we can tell real quickly, if there's a character we're talking to, what their rank is. We can quickly see, okay, that's a peon, or that's somebody in the middle, or that's somebody super high up. And so that's good to see. Again, here's the stereotypes of how they see other clans or other cults. This is their relationship with them. I really dig that. It's in each chapter. Let me pull this up to a double page real quick, and I'll show you what this gun looks like because it's kind of neat. 2-page. There we go. So yeah, the guns look pretty badass, and these are pretty much everybody has the same gun, this Trailblazer weapon, and they said that no more production is they're not being made anymore, and no more ammunition is being produced, and so apparently they have stores of them, but they're running very low, and so they've been rationing them for like generations. So apparently they have a bunch of them, but they're not making more. That seems weird to me. He says, yeah, Demon's live stream. Yeah, it was amazing. I deleted it already though, so you can't go back. There's no proof. It didn't happen. It didn't happen, Mike. I'm telling you, it didn't happen. It wasn't me. All right, let me flip this back. All right. Actually, no, I want to show you this dude. These guys are pretty awesome too. These are the judges. And we talked a little bit about the judges before. And Now, the judges remind me basically of like a cowboy lawman kind of mixed with like some type of weird fanatical priest. Okay. They wear this leather trench coat and their leather hats. They carry this big long hammer everywhere they go. And the most religious text is of their laws, and it's called the Codex, and it's always within reach. And you can see this guy holding his Codex right there with him. And since they read this Codex, even though they have it memorized, they have the whole thing memorized, but they read it kind of like fanatics read a Bible, and because reading it somehow calms them down. It makes them feel kind of close to what they call the first judge. And they have this cool little story about the first judge. They tell us about after the eschaton, after the apocalypse, people were like super scared, and they were very hard-hearted, right? And very violent. And they attacked each other over the smallest things. People were killing each other over like a handful of corn. And so soon gangs started to arise, and more violence followed that. And this kind of continued on until one man led the people back to the path of civility, and he called himself the judge. How badass is that? You just have to be pretty ballsy to just come out like, you know what? No, I'm the judge, right? So this guy, he calls himself the judge. And so after this little village was raided one time, one of the raiders who was wounded, he was left behind. Well, the judge went over and grabbed him, and he brought him back into the city square in front of all the people. And he read out and recited all the crimes that this guy just committed, or this person. He then led him to this upturned bucket, and he had made him kneel in front of it, and he smashed his head with one blow of this sledgehammer right in front of everybody, right? Just one blow, boom, pops his head like a freaking watermelon. And the farmer, he looked at the farmer and tried to hand his sledgehammer back, and the farmer's just like, no, man, I'm good. So he just kind of carried that sledgehammer around everywhere. And so he would journey from village to village, and he mediated altercations and did what he did best. He judged people, right? Villagers would hold prisoners for him, and kind of like have a list of their charges for when he comes into town. His judgments were merciless, and his executions were brutal and grim. And his trademark floppy hat, his glasses, the trench coat, the hammer were soon known throughout the land. And he was a figure for law and order and deterrence, right? He was a badass. Going to take Griffin to see Apollo 11 documentary at the IMAX. So as per usual, I'll watch later. You guys kick ass later. We'll see you, Scott. So this guy started being renowned throughout the land for his badassery, and he started being ambushed a lot. But somehow, some way, he always won. And soon his reputation started attracting young people who joined him and started learning from him. And so they would all wear kind of like these bandanas, the hat, and all the stuff, right? And they all looked pretty much identical. And together they would form this crusade against all the scum in the area. And so the judges are today, still in that same garb, carrying their hammers and administering justice and just being full of badassery. And that's how the judges still remain. Buford, yeah. So, yeah, let me flip through. I like showing you guys on the PDF because it's so much more detail. Get a drink here. So, yeah, this is one of the judges. Looks just too awesome. Now, don't get it twisted. Like, a lot of these people were carrying swords and, the scabbard and, hammer and stuff like that. There are weapons around. There's guns around, like the Trailblazer gun. There's AK-47s, muskets, all types of stuff. There's still, all types of weaponry around. So just because a lot of these pictures show more primitive weapons, this world is not limited to that whatsoever. Here's a couple of the judges kind of chilling out. Here's one getting into a fight with a Spitalian. I don't know who I'd go for in that one, because Spitalian just sounds so awesome to me. Serve with justice, seek that which is wrong, alleviate the suffering. Like, holy crap. Because you know exactly what that means. Alleviate the suffering. Yeah. The hammer does not show the way. It punishes. It exercises. It removes. Holy crap, that's awesome. The musket is light and lightning. All that is false flees from it into ruin. So cool, man. So cool. So there's a couple more of these judges with their hammers, riding their horses around, being badasses that they are. So here's one of their muskets that they carry around. Pretty cool stuff, man. Pretty cool stuff. Now, these guys, let me get into this next one. These guys are called the Clanners. Okay. The Clanners. And these are more of the primitive. I'll leave that up for just a second, just because the art here is just amazing, right? It's just amazing. So the Clanners they're kind of like the more primitive of cults, and they kind of live outside the cities. So remember me telling you about the cities last time, the different cultures. Well, outside of these cities live these different types of clans, right? And so they're at each city in the continent, there's all these clans that kind of live around, and they live in the mountains and uncharted places and all that stuff. So these are people that chose not to kind of move into civilization, right? They're more primitive. And so it says, one of the things they say is if they were to see a chronicler with that vocoder thing, like their Darth Vader thing, turned up and all their technology and everything, that they would consider them a god. So the Clanners are really primitive technology. They normally rely on more primitive weapons such as spears and daggers, blades, things like that to fight, but they also use rifles such as the AK-47 when it's called for, but mostly more primitive weapons. So yeah, each area basically has its own unique clans, from Hiberspania to Africa to Balkan to Poland. All of the surrounding clans are different. Most of them are considered savages by the city dwellers and kind of dangerous nuisance to all, but just a few cults. A few of them actually see them as handy and actually elicit them for help doing some things sometimes too. So just another group out there. There was a whole lot of information about their backstory, which in each kind of place had their own backstory, right? So Franca had their own backstory and Poland had their own backstory. So it was way too much to go into, so I kind of spared you guys the details. But still a really cool group of people that helps. All these people just kind of enrich the world, right? It makes it so large. So I like here, I was like flipping through the art, like you were flipping with me, but you weren't. Yeah, here's some of the art from the Clanners. Look at this dude. You ran into him? Holy crap, he's wearing a diving bell, for crying out loud. What are you going to do with that? Just looks cool. What's up, Jake? Good to see you, my dude. So, yeah, it looks awesome. A lot of primitive stuff here. I'm not sure what this guy's shooting. It looks like an arrow of light almost. All right, that was the Clanners. Now let's move forward a little bit to the Scrappers. All right, and I told you guys a little bit about the Scrappers before. The Scrappers are, they kind of remind me of like the people that were in the gold rush, a long time ago, like in America, the big, great gold rush where people like left their homes and their jobs and took off, west to chase after the fortune they heard of. That's kind of what the Scrappers remind me of. And they tell us that they're usually very independent people. They don't hang around a lot of other people. They wear this patchwork of leather, rags, and capes, and sometimes made out of partial plastic hanging off of them, whatever they can find. And the Scrapper doesn't, it tells us that the Scrapper that doesn't know how to hide super well won't be alive long because they're always out in the wilderness in these ruins looking for treasures. And so they're very susceptible to be attacked. And so they kind of have this talent of almost becoming invisible in these ruins where they work, right? And they find things that look interesting, and they take them to the Chroniclers, who pay them super well for the right items, right? But these Scrappers don't necessarily know all the time, okay, I don't know what I have, but it looks important. I think the Chroniclers will like that. And some of them actually do start knowing what they have and become these manufacturers and these mechanics, and are very highly sought after in Justitian. So yeah, they have these. Some of them kind of develop these high skills. for creating weapons and technology and all types of awesome stuff. But most of them are mainly like your gold diggers. And sometimes they, so that tells us that they kind of only go in the cities when they're ready to, right? They spend their lives digging in the ruins, and they kind of stay there until either their cart, basically like their shopping cart or whatever, is full, or pretty much until they almost die from starvation. And only then do they return to the city to cash in these wares and sell them to the chroniclers. And so they'll kind of hang out in the city a few days, maybe take a bath, get some provisions, probably get hammered, and do whatever they do until they're ready to head back out again and start digging through more junk, and digging into these ruins, right? And so sometimes they tell us, I thought this was cool, sometimes they will actually adopt orphans, and I thought this was strange. And they'll take them with them on their digs. And they call them mice. They call these orphans mice because they use them to get into like super small caverns and spaces too small for adults to fit. Well, they'll use these orphans. Hey, I'll feed you and stuff. You go in these super small areas and look for stuff. And after they clear out an area, they will leave some sort of sign along with their name in it. Name on the sign, kind of as a way of saying, I was here, and you can keep moving. I got everything, right? So the next scrapper comes along, they'll be like, oh, crap, he got that. He got all the stuff here. But it says that that's not always the case. Scrappers love going back and picking back through an already scavenged area and finding a gem that was overlooked by the previous scrappers. And they said it's almost like I got you, you dumbass, you idiot, I got you. You should have cleaned this area better. And so they love doing that. And so they often call the people that left stuff idiots, as they pull something out of this searched area. So it's kind of a cool thing. I'd call them rations, right? I'll feed you, baby bird. Yeah. So yeah, this scrapping is the scrappers going out to the ruins, getting stuff. It's really an addiction for most of these people. They always feel like just one more ruin. If I search one more ruin, I'm going to hit the mother lode and never have to work again. The reality is that there's not very many retirees in this cult. Most of them end up dying of weakness, like in the wasteland, and rarely do people notice. They just simply don't return to the city after a while. And what happened to them? I don't know. So, and this is in certain areas. Now, I think in Africa, there was like where they take care of old scrappers and stuff like that. But most of the other parts of the world, they just don't care. Like, these are independent people. We don't care. They're gone. Let me flip through these a little bit. My nose likes running while I'm on the stream. Thank you, nose. So here's one of the guys from the scrappers. Kind of got his gun sitting there. Did he kill something? Is that a dog sleeping next to him, or did he kill something? I don't know. So again, the graphic design and stuff is really awesome. This old scrapper dude got his weapon. It's a pretty sweet gun there too. Let me switch to the double page view. Oh, I wish I could find a shortcut for this on my keyboard. Let's switch back and forth. Why is this flashing? Why are you doing that? Stop it. All right. Calm down. All right. Yeah, look at the gun. It looks pretty awesome. I almost got this spear at the bottom of it, and it kind of looks like a flamethrower or something almost towards the top. Looks pretty epic. So yeah, that's the scrappers. I really like them too. I could see myself playing a scrapper for sure. Now, let's switch over to the Neo-Libyans. All right, these dudes are like, the Neo-Libyans live in Africa, and these people are merchants whose goals are basically profit, influence, and wealth, right? That's what drives these people. Whatever costs them time and energy without bringing them in money, they have no interest in. They deny it. They don't care. It's a waste of time. So these people, the Neo-Libyans, are the richest of the rich, right? And they live amongst this super poor class as well. And they wear cloths of often gold and these very colorful fabrics with the turbans kind of draping down into like these shawls. And they carry sabers and these super long fancy rifles. And they have slaves that do most of their heavy lifting that they take along with them everywhere. So they're known for like big game hunting and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff they talk about in here so that they won't even talk about something if it is not about making a profit. So speaking about your family or the weather or a gossip it's just not done. It's just a waste of my time. So, and I thought this was neat. They kind of broke down their successes into this quick philosophy of 3 things that made them all their money, and which is exploration, diplomacy, and trade. So that helps keep them from spending all their money fighting wars and finding resources, and trading and selling with other people, and the art of negotiation is what's super important to them. The mice really got me thinking about an evil character that uses them for all kinds of awful and wrong things. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I mean, when you start going through these cults and the different places and everything, the mind definitely does start to turn, and you start thinking about all the cool stuff that you could intertwine with this world. It's just awesome. They give you so much to work with. See here some of their Neo-Libyans. And again, the different graphic design in here with the backgrounds and stuff, just every little section fits. So there's one big game hunting with his white slave back here. Just look at the art. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again, they have high-tech gear, so it's not like all primitive stuff. I mean, you see here's binoculars are high-tech stuff. And so it's kind of a mixed match of old and new. It's really neat. They're a long rifle, very ornate. Dig it. All right. So let's move on to the Scourgers. Let's take a look at these guys. They're kind of crazy looking. Now, these people, most of the people in this cult live in Africa as well. Let me find my page. They live in Africa as well. And so if the African people are the lion, they say the Scourgers are its paws. Okay. The Scourgers are accustomed to fighting, or as accustomed to fighting as Neo-Libyans are to negotiating. So these are the fighters of this part of the world. They walk through the plains and the jungles. They walk through the plains and jungles and overgrown ruins like every day to kind of stay in shape. They climb mountains and ruins and jump chasms and roll with the impact while they're throwing their spears, all to increase their strength and agility. And they teach themselves how to run through the psychivores. Remember me telling you about the psychivores, the plants that have like octagon-looking leaves and stuff that scratch you and kill you. Well, they figured out ways to run through the psychivores, avoiding the thorns and the deadly flowers. And they spend almost all their time, training and battling each other, sharpening their skills. And I thought it was kind of funny. If a Neo-Libyan comes by, and they're coming by and they're carried by their slaves, they happen to be carried by their slaves at that time, the Scourgers will start to mock them and call them a weakling. And if they get the chance, they're going to actually rip the merchants' garments from them because they say they don't deserve them. So they despise out-of-shape bodies, and they say they do so. They hate out-of-shape bodies because it was a lack of fitness, alcohol, and greasy meat, which allowed the white man to conquer Africa before they would eventually take it back years later. So although the Neo-Libyans bring wealth and money to the villagers really look up to the Scourgers because they are the ones who sacrifice their lives to keep the people safe, while the merchants, the Neo-Libyans, would actually sell their souls for the right price, right? They don't really have the morals. But the Scourgers definitely do. And they have this great, rich history that they learn from. Pretty awesome stuff. Let me go through and click through here for you. Here's some of the Scourger stuff. It just looks awesome. And they tell a little bit of a story to it, about them. Like, look at this awesome vehicle that they have. I'm gonna get off the page. I hate it when it does that. It brings up the tools at the bottom. Yeah, here's one of the vehicles that they have. I think it looks cool. Some of their masks. Awesome stuff. But it tells a little bit of a story about them getting into a fight, kind of what their battle was like, and one of them was about to fight one of the enemies, like this giant enemy, big strong guy. But then the leader kind of came over and said, no, the privilege is all mine to be able to fight the strongest guy. The leader of the little attack group gets to fight the biggest and strongest guy. It's like an honor thing. So I thought it was kind of cool. All right, let me see what this is. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Anubians. So these, the Anubians are, man, just the art is incredible. What do you say? I mean, the Nubians are kind of like the shamans of Africa. And so I'm not going to go into too deep into them because it was kind of weird. They dig for artifacts of their lost culture, kind of in an attempt to bring back these rituals of bygone days back. Okay, so they have this hidden knowledge that they're uncovering that shows that they are kind of the chosen people. And so they're kind of religious in a way, but more shamanic. They're kind of responsible for catching the spirits of the dead. And so they perform these really intricate rituals, and they say that they guide the dead into the afterlife. And it says no one dares resist an Anubian or deny them anything, because everybody's kind of scared of them, right? They're always messing with dead stuff and doing rituals, and they're kind of creepy. It talks about as they gain knowledge, they go through a series of transformations along the way, one of which is becoming like a warrior where they know only action and reaction. And they're in tune with the earth's chakras and just crazy, ferocious fighters while they're going through this transformation. Just lots of cool stuff going on with the Anubians. Show you some of the stuff here. You can see like they're drawing stuff. It looks like almost DNA strands. Lots of stuff going on. So yeah, there's just tons and tons of groups for you to jump into. And like I said before, you would never be able to get through all of them. Got to run. Looks really cool. See you, Mike. See you, man. So lots of stuff that you would never be able to get through all the way, even if you played this game for a very, very long time. I know we're running long, guys. Like this, it's we're getting towards the end. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit because we've been going for almost an hour now, and I've still got some left to go. But it's all good stuff, and I figured I'd get it out there. And if you want to watch it, you can check it out in bits and pieces, and I'll have it on my YouTube as well. So let's talk a little bit about, and I'm going to mess up this name. I don't know how the hell to pronounce it. The Hammadans. I'm going to go with that. They're basically religious people who sought out and found other religious people who shared, kind of this similar faith in God after the Eschaton. Now, their numbers grew as they spread the word about being, the chosen people. It seems like everybody feels like they're the chosen people, right? Isn't that funny? So they started spreading the word about them being the chosen people, and everybody's like, oh, wow, I'm chosen too. And they started talking about how God would bless them and give them lands to farm and lands to raise their herds. And they started growing in numbers. So they ended up finding this like really awesome river, set up shop there, and really badass place. And they're what's crazy is like these people that are other religious people that hate each other moved in right next door, and so now they've been fighting for like 100 years or whatever. But typical religious type stuff, right? These people are vigorous fighters, and they kill in the name of their God, and they die for their own kind, right? They're very, very religious, and so they'll kill in the name of the God and die for their own kind. So that's who these people are. Now, let me skip forward to, let me get to show you this art. Let's start getting through these a little bit faster, you guys. This stuff is just really cool. Oops. Am I skipping stuff? Yeah. You can see what their town looks like. This next group, though, I think you're going to really dig. Scimitar. This next group is pretty awesome. These are the Apocalyptics. This group is pretty badass to me. Almost like a rogue, sort of, kind of. First off, this is outfit. It doesn't look like, I mean, that's going to chafe, right? That's not comfortable. Anyways, it's cool art. But I get it. But yeah, the Apocalyptics, these people are pretty awesome. They are people of passion. And the roots go back to before the Eschaton, when a billionaire named Jerome Gettrell, he started preaching on the stream. Remember me telling you about the stream, this like, I almost think of it like an internet stream. This guy started preaching on the stream about the power of archetypes and the tarot and free love and Satanism and nationalism and anarchy, life in the fast lane, subversion, all these types of things. He started preaching about it. And the simplest way to kind of describe and explain what he was preaching was passion over mind. Okay, so every emotion is precious as gold to the Apocalyptics, whether it's love or hate, violence, fever, or the wind in your hair. It all must be taken in and celebrated to the extreme. Okay, so the early followers soon turned into gangs known for their crazy orgies and the drug-fueled parties that they would throw. Full of like mass brawls and fighting and storming public buildings, causing scenes. And soon these gangs grew right along with their confidence and the ruthlessness, right? Well, they would take over the drug market eventually. They would produce guns and metal blades for their companions. So they were as free as a bird. If one person in the group got shot down, the rest of the group would just come in and take over, not even missing a beat. So they tell you, really live one more time. Feel every nuance of your suffering and joy. And I just think that's kind of neat. There's something kind of beautiful about that. You know, really live one more time. Feel every nuance of your own suffering and joy. I think there's something to that. Maybe not pushing it this far. When the Eschaton hit, though, the Apocalyptics were very quick to take advantage of the situation. They cornered the black markets really quickly, and they infiltrated the UEO soldiers, their ranks. And out of this, they were able to get their hands on food and weapons and filtration systems that they kind of squirreled away. And anyone that got in their way were quickly bribed or blackmailed or killed, right? Don't get in their way. So drugs, sex, weapons, they pretty much covered every market that they wanted to be in, and they dominated it. So now let me flip on to the next one real quick. My nose is itching. Flip through here. These are still the Apocalyptics. Pretty awesome stuff. Kind of hedonistic. That's the word I'm looking for. It's hedonistic type style to it. So, man, my nose. Itching. Cool stuff. All right, we've only got a couple left, I think. Yeah, let's go. So this guy, these are the Anabaptists. And, excuse me, these are the Anabaptists, and they are another cult based upon religion. And so they wear this this symbol. Let me show it to you. Right up here, this symbol. And it's of a broken cross, and it can be seen as, they wear it like as an iron pendant or forged onto the pauldrons or sewn into banners, or even written on chalk, like onto jackets and things like that. And they talk about this. The wheel symbolizes God's creation, and the missing quarter up there in the top left symbolizes humans' imperfection, and only when the circle is unbroken will God's people find salvation. Now, their leader, when he was alive, he looked everywhere for these 4 spiritual rivers, as he thought they would wash away his old age. And his journey was unfulfilled because these rivers, when he thought he found them, all the rivers in the area had dried up, and after the Eschaton happened. So to kind of try to stay alive longer, he would rub oil onto his head, and but his power started to fade, and his power it's called pneuma, I think. It was leaking out of him, meaning he really didn't have long to live. And so he called for all of his followers to come in and join him. because he knew he wasn't long for the world, and he dumped this oil and this certain type of extract over his companion's head. And it says that the oil sank into their skin and gave them hope. And then they were suddenly not grieving for their dying leader, but instead they were in this like a euphoric type trance or state where they were looking forward to their leader becoming one with their Lord. And so the followers went out without them, and they continued looking for the four rivers. They thought they found one, but there was a council there run by non-believers. Now we know that those non-believers were the Chroniclers. Remember that? The little geeky guys with the Darth Vader mask on. Remember that? Yeah, this is where the Anabaptists found them, and they raided the place, destroyed their technology, killed everybody they could find. And after about 200 years went by, the word of the psychonauts started spreading, and the stories made their way to the Anabaptists. Now, they believed that this was like the fulfillment of prophecies from their fallen leader, and that they were going to be the ones chosen to fight for the future of humanity. So again, these people feel like they're the chosen ones. The book said they anointed themselves, felt the four rivers within them well up. They baptized people with land and with water. And the enemy with fire, the enemy they baptized with fire and steel. From that, I'll get it out. From that day on, everyone called them Anabaptists. So that's where they got their name. So pretty cool stuff. Anabaptists sound pretty cool. There's a lot to them as well. Definitely worth digging into. Anabaptists would be cool. But yeah, they put this oil on themselves, and it's almost like a drug. Pretty cool stuff. Kind of makes me think of like a paladin a little bit. Cool stuff. Yeah, check out this dude's flamethrower. Awesome. All right, here's the last group, you guys. These are called the Pailers. What's up, DJ? Good to see you, man. These are called the Pailers, and we talked a little bit about these guys before. Let me get my camera to focus. We talked a little bit about these guys before, and let me flip to the right page. When we went over the different cultures, well, we're going to go into just a little bit more detailed one, because this one is kind of crazy. This one's a little nutty. Apparently, long before the Eshton, some people kind of paid to put themselves into like a cryostasis in like this enormous underground bunker. Okay. And so they were supposed to be woken up in groups after so many years. Right. And there were people that were locked down there with them who watched over them, called the Guardians. And the Guardians were responsible for taking care of the people in cryostasis and for waking them up. And it sounds like they lived in this locked bunker. And I'm not sure if I'm getting all this exactly right, but this is what it sounds like. Anyway, the story's still pretty cool. After the Eschaton, some people blew open the portals and went out into the world, but the majority of the portals remained sealed for generations. And so generators, over time, generators and equipment starts to break down, right? They die out, and almost all the electricity pretty much was gone, and leaving these people to live in almost complete darkness. And so over time, their skin turned very pale, and their hair fell out. Their eyes turned black, and they developed like higher senses and sensations of hearing and touch. And so they kind of communicate with these songs and like tapping on pipes and stuff like that. And the people that are in cryostasis, they call the sleepers. And this is kind of weird. It's kind of funny. Like over time, they started seeing these people that are sleeping, since kind of history it gets blurred over generations and generations. It no longer was like a job anymore. They started talking about it like it was a religion, and they started thinking that the sleepers, the people asleep, were the gods. And it's kind of nuts. And so they started this kind of religion after these sleepers. And so the upkeep and the maintenance things that they would do all became almost like religious rituals. They were religious rituals, and they never missed a day. And so they finally break the seal to go outside, generations later. And some went out and met with the Balkans that are in the area. And the Guardians, that felt like they were doing this God's work for generations, never missed a day. Were very held themselves in high esteem, right? Well, the Guardians were laughed at. The Balkans pointed at them and laughed, and they looked freakish. And they started beating them all the way back until they were driven back into their underground homes, and kind of this hatred started swelling up inside of them, right? So at night, they went back to the surface and they strangled the Balkans and their enemies while they slept, and they stole their belongings, and they would vow to reconquer the land as the chosen people for the sleepers, right? Again, chosen people. So you're going to see that a lot in this world, and it's kind of fascinating. Really awesome stuff going on here, though. I love the idea of this system becoming this kind of an underground system. It's called a Recombination Group, was the name of the company that these people paid to kind of put them in cryostasis. And here they are, like, worshiping at the altar of RG and of the sleepers. It's kind of funny. But, you could see that happening over, 500 years or something like that, when everything breaks down and you lose combination with the outside world, and with your text and language gets changed over time. Awesome stuff. Look at these guys, man. Really cool. Really cool stuff. Yeah, it's one of the Pailers right there. The mace looks pretty awesome. Let me pull that up on a two-page view so you can see it. Actually, you can see it right there. Yeah, there's a little bit bigger picture. So yeah, you can see one of their maces there. It looks pretty awesome. Lots of cool weapons in this game for sure. So that's about it, guys. I think that wraps up book 1. There is a history chapter. I'm not going to go into it because it's basically just kind of breaking down chronologically what happened. So we've already gone through really all of that for the most part. I think there's a few additions, but it's not worth like going, okay, in the year 2070, this happened. In 2072, this happened. Not going to do that. But I think we learned enough about this world, definitely enough, to jump into the second book, which is full of their character creation, their mechanic system, the GM guide, and those type of things. And so we're going to be doing that on Monday. So, yeah, sorry this ran a little bit long. I just wanted to get through it because next week we're going to be going. I wanted to start on book 2 because the following week I'm going to be in Reno, Nevada at Gamma Trade Show. So if you're going to be at Gamma, be sure to let me know, and I'd like to meet up with you guys there. That's it for me tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching it. And for all y'all that couldn't make it, say hi down in the chat. I'll say hi back. How about that? So, all right, that's it for me tonight, you guys. Y'all have a great weekend, and we will see you all on Monday. Good night.